there were hundreds of Muslim prisoners being held in Guantanamo Bay. But that also we had in Guantanamo Bay our U.S. Army Muslim chaplain. And that, perhaps, would be an indication to the world, to the international community, that the United States was treating these prisoners in Guantanamo Bay humanely. I was disturbed by these many things that was going on. I was disturbed how prisoners were being held in cage-like cells, being treated more like animals.
Jazakallah khair. Brother James Yusuf E., for your spine-chilling and first-hand account of abuses at Guantanamo Bay. This, by a decorated American Army officer and an upright Muslim, certainly is a great contribution towards promoting peace, not only in the United States, but worldwide. Alhamdulillah. Now we have the open question and answer session, in which the audience gets an opportunity to ask questions on the topic, but you are requested to be brief and to the point when you put forward your question, and you may ask only one question at a time. May I request the volunteers to kindly ensure that if there are any press personnel or journalists, kindly give them the first preference. Then, if there are any non-Muslims, to give them preference. And lastly, Muslim brothers, so that we have a more interesting session in the limited time available. Yes, brother.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam.
My name is Dr. Nadeem. I work in Saudi Arabia. First of all, I am extremely sorry to hear about your harrowing experience, Brother James. My question to you is there something called as Geneva Convention? And is it not the right time to apply against the US Army and intelligence?
Yes, the Geneva Conventions is actually the international body of law which governs armed conflict. However, when the United States started putting prisoners in Guantanamo Bay, the interpretation of the law by the former Bush administration was that Geneva Conventions did not apply. And essentially that said that prisoners in Guantanamo didn't have rights. This was something that actually upset nations all over the world. Even nations that were close allies of the United States were disturbed when the United States claimed that Geneva Conventions wouldn't apply down in Guantanamo. When Barack Obama ran for president in 2008, one of the things that he promised was to restore Geneva Conventions, was to shut down Guantanamo Bay, was to ban torture without exception. For that reason, he had a lot of support from many of the communities of conscience within the United States. And we saw that when he was elected, that within 2 days, he signed an executive order to close down Guantanamo within a year. That year would be January 22nd, 2010, and that date is closely coming. But Guantanamo Bay is still open today. There are still about 250 Muslims still being held in Guantanamo Bay, and President Barack Obama has not fulfilled that promise. If you are following the news, the issue of Guantanamo Bay, he is struggling to get this place closed down, as many conservative, Republican, right-wing lawmakers are objecting to the closing of Guantanamo. But yes, Geneva Conventions is important because it guarantees rights to those who are imprisoned, among many other things.
Yes, brother.
Assalamu alaikum, Brother Yusuf.
Wa alaikum assalam.
My name is Asher Khan. I'm from travel and tourism industry. My question is, we all believe that the human rights were detained in Guantanamo Bay, but putting more light on the atrocities done with the holy book Quran, don't you think it would instigate more people to do injustice or any harm to, again, doing some terrorist attacks?
Great question, and I thank you for that. But without a doubt, not only the abuse and the desecration of the Quran, in my view, is considered something which would motivate others to retaliate or to take revenge, but in general, the whole concept of Guantanamo Bay and holding prisoners there, abusing them, torturing them, and holding them indefinitely without charge is something that I feel pushes people to the extreme. One of the arguments against Guantanamo is that if you didn't hate America before you were put in Guantanamo, you certainly hate America now. And in my interactions with those prisoners in Guantanamo, I didn't meet a single individual who had anger towards the U.S. government and military for wrongly imprisoning the vast, vast majority who are there. So sure, one of the arguments against Guantanamo is that it helps recruit people to extremist ideologies.
Thank you.
Yes, sister.
Myself, Dr. Sunita Magre. I am the reader in the Department of Education, University of Mumbai. I want to ask one question, that what is the program on peace education exposing the US government?
Can you repeat your question slowly and speak into the mic, not on the side?
Actually, the sister is more comfortable with Hindi. Inshallah, I'll translate her question. She wants to know what is the program or what action are people worldwide taking to expose the reality of the US state government when it comes to the exploitation of the prisoners in the Guantanamo Bay.
From what I know and from my knowledge, it's mostly the human rights organizations that are leading this effort to raise awareness and to expose much of the injustices that have occurred not only in Guantanamo, but in other places like Abu Ghraib in Iraq, in Kandahar, in Bagram, and in other secret CIA black sites, which we don't know their precise locations. From what I know, it's mostly the human rights organizations like Amnesty International, Human Rights First, the Center for Constitutional Rights, other organizations like in the UK, Caged Prisoners, Reprieve, and whatnot, who are leading the effort to raise awareness. But what I've observed in the United States is that many people in my own country stay blind to what's going on outside the borders of the United States. Many polls have been taken over and over again, and they reveal that most people in the United States are not very concerned about international affairs. And I believe this is something that has to change. When I lectured in the UK to students at universities throughout Britain, I saw a vast difference with regard to the interest that students had for world affairs. This is an area in which the American people really have to improve upon.
Yes, brother.
Shalom Alaikum. My name is Jai Kishore Sharma, a student of DLLB Honors, studying at present in Bengal Law College, situated in Santiniketan, West Bengal. Sir, my question is regarding the definition of justice. I have asked many teachers what is the exact definition of justice. We have learned constitutions, even though the concise definition of justice is not given. Sir, I want to ask you, in the Quran, there is any definite or perfect definition of justice is there?
The question is, what's the precise definition of justice? And I would agree with you that perhaps from nation to nation, constitution to constitution, legal document to legal document, there may be some variations. Is there a precise definition in the Quran? I myself am not a Muslim scholar, and I would encourage you to pose that question to some of the ulama, the more learned, as to how Islam defines that word justice. But we know that the word justice is found throughout the Quran, and we know that the Prophet, peace be upon him, used the word several times, whether it's the word adl or whether it's qist. So with regard to the precise definition of justice, I would refer that question to, again, the scholars.
I wanted to share with you some of these ayat of the Quran and some of the ahadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Care and affection, guidance and encouragement, dedication and vision,
which give us an indication and an instruction,
uplifting the horizons of the child in an Islamically sound way,
as to how to be good Muslim parents.
Muhammad Tim Humble.
Welcome to a brand new series, 26 ways to be a good Muslim parent.
Imbibe the various qualities of ideal parents essential for their children's upbringing and betterment from 26 ways to be a good Muslim parent. Tomorrow at 6 p.m. and repeat telecast at 5:30 a.m. India on Peace TV.
A friendly message by Dr. Zakir. The last testament of God.
It is a proclamation to humanity, a fountain of mercy and wisdom, a guide to the erring, a warning to the heedless, an assurance to those in doubt, a solace to the suffering, a hope to those in despair. Al-Quran, the most positive book in the world, the final message of God to humanity. Let's read it, understand it, and follow it.
Peace TV, the solution for humanity.
Quran is the divine word of Allah. It is the final revelation to humanity. It is a means of healing, both spiritually and physically. Whosoever abides by it is guided. To ponder and reflect on its beautiful verses. Join me on Tafsir al-Quran al-Kareem.
Appreciate the significance of tafsir to realize the essence of the Quran in Tafsir of Quran. Next on Peace TV.
The next question from the brother in the rear.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Wa alaikum assalam.
My name is Talat Ansari. I am from Nagpur. Thanks for the light shown on the prisoners. May Allah guide us in the right way. And we will be highly obliged if you can throw the lights of those prisoners where they produced ever in front of the court, where they just accused or they were proven criminals. They were free to speak in front of judges.
Yeah. The situation of prisoners in Guantanamo today is that most are being held indefinitely without charge, without evidence. Is that your question?
Yeah, I doubt it.
As I mentioned, when I was there, the numbers were up towards 660, and I believe there have been approximately 700 to 800 individuals who have been held in Guantanamo. Over 500 have already been released, never to have been charged with a crime, leaving about 250 or so still remaining. Of those 215 still remaining, very few have had any charges actually brought against them. I myself also am waiting for the Obama administration to release those who are not going to be charged with a crime, and for those who may be charged with a crime, to put them on trial in a fair and just court. I think one of the problems that is already recognized is that some of those who the U.S. government firmly believe may be criminal terrorists were kept before Guantanamo in secret CIA black sites where they were tortured beyond our imaginations. We know that some of these individuals were waterboarded, subjected to waterboarding, water torture, where they have water poured over their face and you get the feeling that you're suffocating through water and drowning. We know that individuals have gone through that torture like 183 times within 1 month. So the problem is some of these prisoners who the US government may want to try in a court have been tortured so bad that perhaps any evidence that they may have gotten from these individuals could never be used in court. So it's a huge, complicated issue, Guantanamo Bay, and how it's going to be legally handled. I am of the opinion that if a person is not going to be tried in a court of law and can't be tried, then he should be released.
Yes, sister.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Tanzil Alapur and I'm a student of grade 11. My question is, what America did to Iraq and Afghanistan is now trying to do the same thing to Iran. And UN is in the puppet hands of Israel and US. As Muslims, what do we do apart from raising awareness? Because we Muslims are not at all going to get justice. And without justice, there will be no peace in this world.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Yes, indeed, there cannot be peace without justice. And until our community, ourselves, our Muslims, put forth every effort that we can to organize, to plan, to sacrifice our wealth and our time and effort towards these causes, we will never be able to accomplish those goals like other sectors of societies or other groups have. We have to make a commitment individually, not only to learn our faith, but to sacrifice our time and wealth towards these things. One of the things that I see our community needs to do, Muslims, is to really understand systems, how the political systems work, how to affect change, the role that money plays in political systems, like in the United States. And in order for us to have the same influence as other groups on elected officials, that means we have to be investing our money and our time and our efforts towards those same causes. We haven't done that. In the United States, for example, we are at infant stages with regard to our participation in the political process. And as a result, other groups, whether they be religious or ethnic, are far, far ahead of Muslims with regard to getting their voices heard by elected officials and getting their concerns met by those people who are elected to office.
Yes, brother.
My name is Manish Katira. We are into an NGO, Child's Right and Family Welfare. I just wanted to ask, there is one IPC law, 498A. It's been very much misused by the woman toward husband and father and mother. I just wanted to say that this law has been very much misused, and as a human right, it's very much violation about the father and mother. Without an interrogation to the police take father and mother behind bars unnecessarily, without interrogation.
He's talking about abuse by women who are given more rights than men in this particular law.
Yeah, I mean, in general, we know what Allah says in the Quran, وَأَقْسِطُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ الْمُقْسِطِينَ. It commands us to do justice and stand for justice because Allah loves those who are just. So in any situation, we as Muslims have to demand that there's fairness, whether it's for women or whether it's for men.
Sir, there is no law for men.
Yes.
There is a law for women, there is a law for animals, but there is no law for men.
There are many men being abused by their wives.
Yeah, that's true, sir.
So that's the issue. Again, in general, it's understanding the legislative system of your nation, of your country. There's no law for men. And if that's something you want, you have to understand fully how laws are passed so that you can get the support to get a law passed that protects rights of men. One of the issues that I said earlier was what we don't do well as a community is understand systems and get involved and participate. Because this seems like, from your perspective, this is an issue that is not being met. It's not being addressed. And so what I would encourage you to do is to get that support and understand how you might get elected officials to legislate something that would protect the rights of men.
Thank you, sir.
Jazakallah. Yes, sister.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Alia Mukadam, and my question to you is, being locked up in maximum security prison with such accusations, how traumatizing was it for you? And after you were released, how did you get over it? Has it made you stronger morally?
Jazakallah khair. Great question. I was locked up for 76 days. But one of the things I will say is that my faith in Islam and my faith in Allah never was shaken. Alhamdulillah. And my faith perhaps grew stronger. And I often talk about this in other presentations and in other settings, especially when I visit Muslim communities in my own country and talk about faith during a time of crisis. And this is something which I will talk about later this week. But being locked away in that time, there was nothing I could do. What could I do in that situation? I had no control over what was happening to me. And the only way to come to grips with the accusations that were being levied against me and with the threat of the death penalty was recognizing that Allah has control over all things, and that my reliance on Allah was the only thing that gave me a stable mental state of mind in that situation. Sure, the experience was traumatizing, and in some way I can say that I experienced what's known as PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, right? Whenever someone is exposed to a traumatizing experience, will be affected in some way, whether their sleep pattern is altered or whether someone suffers through depression or whatnot. But the experience was also very traumatizing for my family. Disappearing, my wife perhaps was maybe even more traumatized than me, although it was me who was sitting in that solitary confinement, okay? So yes, it had a drastic effect on everyone in my own family. How do I deal with it now? Speaking out, of course, is part of the therapy that I go through, to be able to talk about my experience. And one of the things that I mentioned about in documenting my story is referencing something known as emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence. And what is that? That's taking all of that energy that comes from your emotions, whether it's fear, uncertainty, nervousness, and anger, and directing that energy towards something that is positive and constructive. Okay? So when I went through that whole situation, those emotions were there. Uncertainty, didn't know what was going to happen to me. Fear, they may put me to death. Anger, they shouldn't be doing this to me. I am a U.S. citizen, right? And taking that energy and focusing it and directing it towards something that's positive. And in that solitary state, how did I do that? Submerging myself in dhikr, remembering Allah, reading the Quran. I was allowed one book, and that was an Arabic English translation of the Quran, Yusuf Ali, right? So read the Quran, make dhikr, recite the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Say, walhamdulillah, subhanallah, Allahu Akbar, over and over and over, and get closer to the one who created me. That was how I was able to essentially stay positive during that time.
Jazakallah.
Wa iyyakum.
Jazakallah, Brother James Yusuf Yee, for your valuable contribution in a first-hand understanding and account of what's going on in Guantanamo Bay.
Assalamu alaikum.